What's up, guys? Maxivert Maxwell here. So, I wanted to touch upon a topic that has been lingering in my mind for a couple of days, even just this past week, or even past 2 weeks, and something that I had to really gather the knowledge of in order to share. And that specifically is the whole idea about God progresses in your life more the more that you let go. And there's layers to this, and this can apply to anything in life. I know on this channel I talk about the concept of self-development, biblical self-development, trusting in God, taking care of the body, aka the temple, with fitness and eating right. And that is still something that I am aware that, with the needing to have like more consistency of. But the idea I want to get across is that we often confuse letting go with something that's permanently gone. But what we don't realize is what we let go, we actually attain more of. Meaning, I'll give an example. For instance, just say the concept about anxiety. So, growing up, say we have, sure, obviously growing up, especially nowadays within the world we live in, it's very easy to have, anxiety, whether that's school, whether that's responsibilities, whether that's work, whether that's just everything. But the idea is to recognize that the belief, we often believe that holding on to our anxiety is our tool. Meaning, a lot of us hold on to anxiety because we use it as a kind of like a false grounding technique. Because when we're in a period or a season where we're uncertain about the future, we don't know how everything's going to pan out, we don't know what God is doing. A lot of times we think that God is removing something permanently. Like sometimes God allows something in our lives and we think like, oh man, what was the point in even this happening if it didn't even last that long? Like, we like to see everything in life as realistic metrics, where we think, oh man, because in our lives when we organize things, we like to organize things logically. Say we're organizing a schedule. Obviously, nobody's gonna say, for instance, with a wake-up time, people want to make sure that they wake up in the morning. People are not gonna want to wake up at 4 p.m. because they know that the day's over. So logically, in our minds, that makes the most sense. And in a sense, that aligns with going after the work that God wants us to do. But there are other instances where within our organizational state of mind, a lot of times we think that same way has to apply with everything that happens in our life, whether that's meeting people, whether that's growing in our career, whether that's when we start a relationship with God, whether that's just anything. We tend to think that it would only just make the most sense to organize in one way versus the other. But what we don't understand is that the anxiety of wanting to be in control, like that is false security, because anxiety at the end of the day is only suppressing what we truly can see. Meaning, say for instance, oftentimes, anxiety can act as a barrier from the truth of what's in front of us. Anxiety about not wanting to go to the gym because we're afraid of people are going to judge how we look. Anxiety about worrying I should have gotten started earlier or something like that. There's all these other worries that we like to create within our minds, and some kid bikers that definitely got in the video. But yeah, but we create all these anxieties within ourselves because they seem the easiest to gravitate towards, because a lot of times the immediate thoughts that we think, we assume that they're the immediate thoughts that are the truth, and what we don't realize is that when we stop going after instant gratification, even within our thought processing, the moment we stop just gravitating towards something that's truly not fulfilling to us, whether that's an anxious thought, a limiting belief, unhealthy lifestyles, eating, not working out, etc., the more that we let go of what we want in the now, the more that God is going to bless us in the future. And at the end of the day, it's also about discernment too. It's a process of letting go, especially if you've had a consistent circumstance where you've been in a cycle over and over and over again of the same events repeatedly happening, and then when event all of a sudden changes, you just think to yourself, like, where was this all along? And then sometimes we tell ourselves that the event that just happened, or the event that just changed, we assume that it's very easy to hold on and think it was our fault, that what happened, the blessing that we received, was something that just happened so late, when in reality, it happened. And this is something I'm continuing having to learn for myself. It happened on time. We just don't know the reason. We just don't know that it's on time, We have to go through this period of letting go and an absent season, and trusting in God, and seeing, and seeing what happens. And it's very easy to look back at our past experiences and our past repeated cycles, and even when we know that a shift has taken place, even when we know that, oh man, I've let go of this person, I've let go of this way of thinking, I've let go of these habits, I've let go of just anything that's holding me back, the toughest circumstance, more so, to let go is the mentality of being anxious about cycles. because we've been in the same cycles for so long that we forget that this new season of letting go, of fully letting go, not just letting go of half of something and still holding on to something else, because that's only partial progress. But when we fully let go, that is when the change is fully being made. But it doesn't happen overnight. It is a gradual letting go process, and I've learned for myself from this past school year just the idea that letting go, the progress doesn't come immediately. With letting go, there are different stages. The letting go fully comes after we've gone through like the most hurt we can ever experience, whether that's a toxic breakup or just for me, a toxic breakup that really sent me on a downward spiral. That was, I guess, the full catalyst into the season of wanting to let go. And it was just something where I had to live throughout that, throughout the beginning of that new journey, where the infancy of the season of letting go started within my toxic breakup, where and this is something where in my sort of 8-month journey video, I most likely am not going to just verbalize this aspect, because this is like a different topic, aka what I'm about to mention here. But after my breakup, it was something where the infancy of letting go, the infancy of that season truly began. And it began through a soul tie, meaning in order to let go, I had to experience emotions that were painful. I had to come face to face that I realized that I was having attachment struggles. And it was something where where I had to go through that in order for that healing process to begin. Because when we're in a constant cycle for so long, we've built up the habit of expecting that cycle to constantly repeat. But when the cycle is finally broken, or the process of it is finally broken, the new season is like slowly emerging, like the bridge between the old season and the new season. When that bridge is occurring, it's very easy to just assume that just kind of to go in blind, not knowing how to feel or what to expect. And that's natural, that's part of the process. And I had to go through that season of just anxious attachment in the fall with with a certain person that wasn't worth my time. But I didn't know that, because I was just growing and within this new season. This is the fall. It's like October 2024. And it was an instance it was an instance where the more that I persevered through the transition into that new season, as well as the infancy of that new season of letting go, with like the season called Letting Go, I that is when a new version of myself was being constructed, because I knew for a fact that my old season of just going on cycles, that's not what I wanted to live anymore. But at the same time, I knew for a fact that this new season was completely uncharted territory, yet I was willing to make the sacrifice to bear the pain and bear the anxiety, or more so just bear the loneliness of the new season, because I knew that I was inevitably going to feel these emotions, because this experience was all completely new. It really just, sorry about that, guys. It really was just in intentional emotions you need to go through. The more that you go through the fire within this new season, when that breaks the cycle of the old, that is when you become familiar of what this new season entails. And one thing I learned is the new season of breaking cycles completely, it is not predictable at all. Of course, it is. There is so much. You experience so much more new experiences, and so much more twists and turns, and so many more people, and so much new wisdom, that it requires a new, like, mental resilience to go through. Because while the old cycle of everything, everything going in cycles, there is a pattern, there is a habit, there is a comfortability within it. At the same time, a constant cycle where it's a merry-go-round, per se. Well, so obviously cycle means a wheel, but some people find a odd pleasure in a cycle. Negative cycles more so, because they've come to use it, to get used to it to so long, to the point where they like to rationalize that, I can still find happiness in this cycle. I can still try to fit pieces within the cycle, even though the cycle keeps moving and moving and moving, and because the cycle is moving, it's pushing away everything else. It's kind of like when you say, for instance, if you spin a wheel. Maybe I'm thinking like, say for example, like a hamster wheel. You're spinning a hamster wheel really fast. Say for instance, you want to add something new into the hamster wheel. Like, hypothetically, say you're tempted to throw like a rock into the hamster wheel, because you think, I want to add something new to the cycle. But the thing is, the cycle keeps repeating and spinning over and over and over again, with something that's already contained within it. Because the cycle is already in motion, if you try to throw something else into the cycle, it'll just fly right back out, because the cycle is already in motion with what is already contained within it. So it cannot, it'll just ricochet off the wheel, off the cycle. But if we're literally, think of this in a literal sense, if I were to completely stop the hamster wheel, and I wanted to add something new within the wheel, within the cycle, I would be able to add something new within it, because I've literally stopped the cycle. And that goes with the new life that we want. We can't just, that comes with breaking hold of our old habits and our old patterns. We cannot add something we, people take pleasure in old cycles that are making them go in circles and leading them stagnant. Some people love that. Some people don't love that. If you're watching this, channel or video, you know that we don't like cycles, but the people who want to throw something into the cycle that's already going and that's already moving, they're gonna drive themselves insane because they don't realize that the more they keep throwing something within the cycle, it's going to keep flying and deflecting outwards. They need to realize that, okay, if I actually stop the cycle, then I can properly add new experiences, add more people, and I can have the freedom and understanding that there is freedom in letting life be complex. Because a lot of times we like to keep things contained within a cycle because we think of it's like an inventory, like, oh man, this is so precious, but at the same time, you're carrying a limited amount of gear in the cycle. You can't carry that much, depending upon how big the wheel is, big the cycle. But when you add more to it, no, but when you fully stop it, when you fully stop everything, fully let go of the old ways, you'll have so many more experiences, to the point where it'll just be an adaptation, like a process of adapting, adding more and more experiences. Like, people will be able to freely come in and out of your life because they're not contained within repeated loops of habits over and over and over again, repeated just unhelpful kind of I guess spirals. But we have to also realize that when we fully break our old ways and our old habits, and the idea when people are constantly, when new experiences are constantly flowing in and out, because living the new life becomes a stream, not a cycle, we start to realize that God will make it known to you of what's for you, what's meant for a season, and what's meant for more. And in order to realize that, it's like the inputs and outputs. Think of the new life that God wants you to live, not only as a stream, but as a transaction. Meaning, say, you're working at the cash register and you give away, when you're working behind the register, you cannot possibly keep the same money that you have to give away for giving with somebody back change, so there's a constant flowing of money coming in and money coming out, but at the end of the day, more money is still being received. It's the same thing with this new life. Just because the stream is constantly going in and out, doesn't mean that you're just losing everything. Just because the stream is going out doesn't mean that everything's being lost. Just doesn't mean like there's water they're all one stream is completely, one stream going the opposite direction, going away from you, is completely filled with water, versus a stream that's coming near you is completely empty. No, like the both streams, one stream, the stream that's facing away from you and the streams that's facing towards you, there's an equal amount of water that is coming through. And that's the best way to describe accepting the full freedom of living a life without loops of insanity. We have to understand that we'll always be receiving something back to us, but it's not something that we will like understand or realize, and it takes a lot of delayed gratification to understand it. It's kind of the same thing too, as just because we lose something doesn't mean that we'll never receive anything back, or the things that we lose, it'll never come back again. You know what I mean? Like, say, like with the money example, just because you give away a $1 bill from the register and give somebody change doesn't mean you're never going to see a $1 bill again. You're still going to see, you're still going to see the $1 bill again, but it's going to be a different bill. You're just, because what you give away, it like is just because what goes away doesn't mean it's fully gone. It'll come back to you, but in a different form. With the dollar example, like, of course you're going to receive a $1 bill again, but it's not going to be the exact same dollar. It's going to look the same, but it's not going to be the exact same. It's the same thing with people. There are people that come into our lives and for a season, and then people that leave, and there's some people that come back, and in the sense, they look the same, but at the same time they're a different person. So you really just don't know. It's just all about accepting the streams of life, and to stop, and just the aspect of letting go is just the constant. Not only is it the constant stream of life, but you get constantly new inputs and outputs, constantly new experiences. Your network increases. Think of the old life also as a dam, where there's only a certain amount of outreach that the old life can extend to, whereas when you open up the dam, the water can flow outwards further and further, and that's the new life. Like you really have no idea of what's going to happen in this new life of letting go, and it's not easy. Because it's a constant growth process. It's not like you grow at a certain point. It's not like the old life where you just grow at a certain point and then things are stagnant and excuse me, and then you're just you're just kind of plateau again. It's not that. Some people might find that comfortable, but it's all at the same time, it's like you really don't know how much life you're gonna live. Once you experience that plateau, there's just so much more that can happen. And but at the end of the day, it's also discerned from God, because when you're living in loops over and over and over and over again, your connection with God is so severed. But when you're living a life where there's constant influxes and outputs, ins and outs, letting go, letting in, God will speak to you of the specific instances in your life, or specific circumstances in your life that truly are meant for a particular season, or truly are meant for more. And like I said, it's also about discernment. It really is about discernment at the end of the day. And it's very easy, especially, and also it seems at the end of the day, it's also dependent on your action taking, because you have these people that say, oh, when you get older, you'll experience more things. But at the end of the day, age is just a number. Just because you're for me, I'm 23, turning 24 in August. Say hypothetically, I were to tell myself, oh man, life really picks up for me in my 30s, and I'm literally just laying around not doing anything because I think that that the magical decade of being in my 30s is gonna magically bring in more experiences. You know, obviously I'm sorely mistaken. I have to put in the work to build up the momentum to receive those experiences. So really, it's about, not only is it about discernment from God, but that discernment, it comes in conjunction with how much you're working in this life, because you can be just working. You can live as much as you want, but if you're just existing, then if you're living a life where you're experiencing the full freedom, like I mentioned, but you're just existing and nothing else is coming from it, then at the end of the day, you're just sitting and not doing. You're just kind of praying without doing any work. You know, and that's something that I had to remind myself. Like, there's certain there's a certain person I keep praying about, and it's something where God knows that I keep thinking about this person, but at the same time, I know that I have to put in the work in order for me to not only gain more clarity, but at the same time, I just control what I can control too. And you know, it's not easy. You know, it's a process, but I think it's the mentality of just to keep moving forward and noticing, you know, the times of just the instances where I'm in tune with God and recognize that whatever thing, you know, keeps repeating, whatever circumstance in my life or calling, anything deep down, if that keeps repeating, then I'll know that it's meant for the long term, because maybe this will be something within my man, this video is getting like 32 minutes long. It's not something it's not my usual but usual kind of video length, but I wanted to end this off real quick, and this is just a huge realization I realized that maybe I mentioned this at some point in the long 8-month video, or look, I have to look back at it that I'm still editing, but I think about correlating the concept about, I'm mentioning about the about this certain person I keep thinking about. It correlates to, I remember for the longest time, and even still today, it also comes in different shapes and forms too. Like, just because what you appreciate, sometimes you have to let go of what you appreciate in certain ways in order for it to come back with new perspective and new fresh form. That is just my interest. And so, because I still have a very strong interest in aesthetics, specifically aesthetics for like background art, whether that could be backgrounds from like my favorite animated shows, or aesthetics in regards to types of video editing styles, aesthetics for like drawing characters in a certain style, whether that's like an anime style or whether that's like certain cartoon style, and you know, just mixing and matching. At the end of the day, just collecting a whole bunch of artistic appreciations, and I realized that it was something where there was a part of me. It's actually very similar to this certain circumstance I'm thinking about with this person. I think about it where in the past it's like with my artistic appreciations, it was something where I was constantly wrestling with it, wrestling with the idea of like, man, should I continue to pursue these artistic interests? I don't know. They just feel like they feel like they're too specific, or they feel like they're too niche or nuanced. But I knew at the end of the day that the more that I persisted and trusted in a God with the gifts that He's given me, the more that I realized that more like, because the more that I'll further will understand in the future of why he like kept them within me for so long. And sometimes when it comes to that, we hold ourselves back from actually executing what we truly want, because we don't understand the implications of why we're interested in what we're interested in. Because I held myself back from like, and sometimes I still do now in some regard, but it's but the process is fully accepting of what the gifts that God has given me, because I just kept holding on to these certain artistic gifts, not knowing how to execute them, because they were so specific and they're so they were not mainstream. And I kept wondering, why is God giving me these things? Like, it just doesn't make sense. They just don't feel common, that is. And when you're not common, it takes more effort to put in effort into what you actually want to do, because you're tapping into an individualized perspective that nobody else can replicate. And it wasn't until I had a near-death experience that I was reminded about, man, if I didn't have these interests, I would not be here. And so that was just the biggest wake-up call that God has ever given me. Like, man, if I kept treating my interests, and that's not to say you have to have all your interests mastered, but when you treat everything that like kind of has a pull within you, but you don't understand why there's a pull, the more that you trust in that pull, the more you persevere within that pull, no matter how confusing it gets, no matter how straining it can feel sometimes. Because or I don't want to say straining, but no matter how confusing or the uncertainty can like hold you back, and can like kind of be so all-encompassing, the more that you continue to ride the wave and trust the process, the more you will find the truth. You won't find the truth right away, but you will find it as you will find the answer. Sometimes it has to take years. And for me, with the whole appreciation of like my widespread creative aesthetics, that took me years, up until I had the near-death experience in 2024. Like, I had these creative interests since I was like 13, 14. It wasn't seriously until this past year where I started to actually find the truth about what they meant. And that applies to somebody I just have a strong interest in. It's something where it's like, I know God is pulling me in a certain direction, and part of me, most of me in some regard, keeps feeling like, oh man, is it worth it, blah blah blah, because of the uncertainty, like, man, it just doesn't make sense about circumstances and whatnot. But thinking back about that past experience with the artistic stuff, not past, it's still going on, but that past like example I just mentioned, the more that I trust in that, the more that I've realized that they're not, the person and the artistic interest, they're not obviously the exact same, but there is an interconnected lesson, and that is just patience. And the patience comes from letting go of your own expectations and controlling what you can control, and at the same time, always keep reevaluating, because this new life of letting go, it's always reevaluation. It's always understanding how what you want, what you're thinking about, what you keep thinking about, how it truly makes you feel. Because a lot of times, we settle for instant gratification so much because we think that our immediate emotions equal long-term fulfillment, long-term success, long-term growth. When listening to our immediate assumptions and immediate emotions are always gonna take us back to square one. So, if you truly feel something deep down, especially within the season of like letting go in the sense of letting go of cycles, letting go of the hamster wheel of and merry-go-round of insanity. When you fully let that go and you embrace the season of inputs and outputs, inputting and letting go, when you fully live in that season, you fully start to grasp the impact of everything in your life and what truly matters to you. And really, it's if it's something where like you cling on to it and it holds such a deep waiting for it. If there's something within you and it holds such a deep like resonates with you deeply, um, and it's a resonance that there's an uncertainty, but at the same time there's a huge amount of peace and joy and fulfillment, and also at the same time want to put this in your head. It's all about how you think about it, because the things that truly bring us peace, joy, and fulfillment, they're not always going to feel like that, because we have to weed out the limiting beliefs and the limiting thoughts that are blocking for us to truly recognize what's truly meant for us. But yeah, that's all I just wanted to say. Man, this is long. It's like 42 minutes, but really just want to really hone it in that letting go does not mean it's gone forever. Letting go is just another way of thinking into receiving more. Because if you let go of old mindsets, you will intake more. And if you let go of certain patterns of thinking, you will achieve more peace, you will achieve more clarity, you will achieve more progress. It's all varied, and it gets deep. It gets deep. I feel like when I'm talking about, I understand what I mean, but I'm not sure how if I'm wording it in a way that kind of gets the point across, because with these videos I just speak off the dome. So let me know if how I'm speaking of it makes sense, because I think really there's just two ways about it. There's either there is either it's letting go of a certain aspect. Say for instance, like our beliefs, real quick. If we're holding something within ourselves, we're holding a certain compartment within our mind about something, and there's all this dust and there's all this litter within, like garbage that's collecting within the topic. You're not just gonna remove everything. It's like it's the same thing with cleaning an apartment. Best example, when you clean an apartment, if something's dirty, you're not, like, say if the couch is dirty, you're not going to throw away the entire couch because it's dirty. No, you're going to take apart the residue and the dirt that's already within the space, in order for the living room to grow in attractiveness, to grow in cleanliness, to grow in feeling more homey. And that's the same thing with our mindsets. Just because we have clutter within our minds at the moment, just because we're carrying limiting beliefs within a certain topic or subject or within our minds, that doesn't automatically mean that the thing that we are thinking about is bad. It just means that way of thinking just needs refinement in order for us to fully experience the fruit of what's already been a blessing in the first place. Whether that's with relationship calling, whether that's with a career calling, whether that's with anything. Okay, that is how I wanted to word it. I think that was worded that perfectly. Nice. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, the guys. Appreciate just the support for this channel, even when it's slow. I'd rather have more gradual growth than just a crazy immediate success. That's just much more rewarding and keeps me humble. So I thank God for that. And yeah, that's basically it. God bless.